um, we said we would get it finalized with you guys. So I am getting this streaming going over on YouTube so that we have, okay, we said there we go. All right, that is going. So we're good on that end. So as soon as this is over, you all can share this video with people and or come back and rewatch things. Okay, this is our second week with Maegan and super excited to have her back again. We have a lot more of what I consider quote unquote quick questions, but as we discovered last week also that sometimes the answers aren't so quick sometimes. So
Mostly they're not quick.
yeah, mostly they're not. All right, so I'm gonna jump right into them. Let's see. I try to organize some things so that they're a little bit in the same genre of questions, but one question that came up, and I'm assuming this is from a math coach because they say a question I hear
Mhm.
a lot with teachers is that I work with is that they quote unquote have to separate some students because we were talking about the random groupings,
Mhm.
right? And how they're like these teachers just keep saying they have to separate students, and they basically set the randomization up so that it is fixed. So, what advice do you have? Again, I see you over there. No, Guyan is like, no, no, that's a big no-no. So how do we, I, yeah, and I feel like we can just tell them, right, that that's not what we should be doing, but how do we help them see the power in this randomization and really encourage them to get beyond that sticking point of these
Mhm.
kids can't be together. I just know it. They can't. So how do we help?
Yeah. Well, which is funny because so like I was reading these questions a few like hours ago, and my friend who I teach with, named Anna Fernside, was there, and I was just reading them out, and I was like, okay, so these are the quick questions. And I think we had a 20-minute conversation about this question. So it didn't feel very quick to me, but that's okay. Um, yeah, so I guess the first thing is well, so here I will give you the quick, easy response, and then the more I guess the more discussion piece my friend and I had, which so the first piece is so a have to, I would assume there is a some sort of an order from parents or the division, some outside agency telling you they physically can't be together. In my view, that's a have to. And I've never had a have to in my career yet, luckily. But if there was some sort of they will physically fight, a
Hmm.
very quick, easy thing. And I do this not for students I don't want to be together, but sometimes if I have a student who struggles being in a group of three, and I feel like they would benefit from being in a group of two, I will put a card I know that is on the bottom that is one of the cards of the group of two. And then I sleight of hand it from the bottom so that those kids can't see it. But I usually only do that to put that person in a group of two, not to load who their partner will be. But if you have a kid who's struggling in groups of three, that's a nice way sometimes to and you could in theory do it with a kid. If two kids can't be together for physical reasons, you could have two different cards on the bottom and just whoosh, pull it out really quick, right?
Yeah.
So that's the quick and dirty answer. But once again, that's a have to. Now, I thought it was really interesting, that idea of have to, because, and I don't like this argument, this slippery slope argument, but I think it's really important that we start to consider have tos versus would like to, because I think because have tos turn into would like tos really fast. And now, and I feel like once you have one thing where, and I guess when when I was talking about it, we talked about like who does this benefit? Does it benefit the kid in the short term, in the long term, you in the short term, in the long term? Because I think, sure, for the 40 minutes in that class, or maybe even the first 10 minutes, that kid might be appeased to not be with the kid they dislike. But I also think it's just sending a message to the kids that we don't want to send to them because it's really like you are telling them through your actions that you don't trust them. And we want all of our kids to like like we should have faith in within every student to be with any student. So I think when we have like when we make these negotiations and be like, well, I guess today, and I just feel like it's like really quick to make it once and then to make it twice and then you're constantly just changing it and then how much are you changing and then what do those actions tell those students? It's kind of my thoughts. So I think have to's, you have to be careful with those have to's because they become just, I don't know. They're just, yeah, rarely are they have to's.
Yeah,
They
and
would
and
like
in the
to's.
question she put like quotes around have to.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that made me think it's not a real have to, like you talked about in the beginning, and like people have in the chat where it is mandated, like these kids are not supposed to be around each other. And people put in there, and yet they're in the same classroom, right? Like, how does that make sense?
Well, and that's the other thing, right? Is that like clearly they must know it's going to happen. And like I also just think, I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot there, but I just think that we do need to just because kids will start to notice that othering of those students. And if this whole process is like all about kids being treated very much the same in like and being viewed with that same light, I think it's just I feel like that small thing can kind of harm them in the long run. Anyways, keep going.
Yeah, no, it is. It's coming back to the why we do things. There's so much in education that we just get told what to do, right? And when, especially if you are a math coach, we have to remember that even adults really want to know the why behind things, right? When we were
Mhm.
kids, and if you've had kids, you know, you got the question why a ton. Why? And pretty
Mhm.
soon they stop asking it, but yet our brains still want it. Our brains still want the answer to why. So if you have some teachers that are really struggling with that piece of it, I think it's better to dig down into why it is important for those kids, for all kids, not those kids in particular. I mean, it is important for all kids, but just a reminder of why it is for those kids too. Uh,
Mhm. Totally.
Okay, so quite a few questions, not quite a few, I guess, but there was a chunk of them about the CYU questions, right? Because that was in these
Mhm.
chapters that we read. So if students are able to opt out of doing check your understanding or CYU questions, what are they doing during the time other students are working on those questions?
Well, yeah, and this is a funny one because I teach grade 6, 7, so you best be believing there are kids who just do not do those questions, right? Like if you think I get 30 or 32 out of 32 doing them, it's crazy. But so I have some rules around if you aren't going to do them. Is I'm like, number one, you just can't be bothering anybody else. Read a book, do whatever. It's about CYU takes I would say at most I'll take 20 minutes on it anyway. So like it's not like I wouldn't do it for like 40 minutes. So it's about 20 minutes and I talk about it. And as much as we want them to make the right choice, there is nothing against reminding them of the benefit of like doing these questions. It's not like, all right, do them, don't do them, whatever. It's like this is your opportunity to check your understanding. And a really great way of reminding them of that is the next day have some sort of assessment or some sort of like an exit slip is what I do. So I usually do check your understanding questions. And then the next day, I'll do some sort of like three-question quiz or some sort of like exit slip. And that's a really quick way for those students to know, oh, okay, maybe I should have actually checked my like my understanding because that was my chance. And because when we have them wait, they don't really see that quick. Like it's kind of, and I'm not going to say kids are like dogs. I'm not going to say this. However, some things can be learned from dog training in terms of teaching, which is you want to have quick responses to things. And if you, like, let's say the kid doesn't do their check your understanding questions and you're like angry and you're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And then 2 weeks like later, you give them this like quiz, they won't connect like those two. But if it's day, like, boom, boom, they see why those check your understanding questions become that much more important. And then the other thing though, too, is like, so I always tell them if they're really not going to like do it. Like I had two kids like this year who just never did them, but they were also like doing so well in the class and they just wanted to read a book. So I was like, yeah, you guys can just read a book. It's fine. Because they didn't feel the need to check their like understanding. But I would also like you can do a few things. You can ask them why. So hey, like why don't you want to, right? Like we want to encourage them to do it. You could say, hey, could you just do like one question for me? And then you could also be like, hey, do you want to like do one together? Like if the rest of your kids are vibing and are doing great, you can like check in on that kid and be like, hey, like how's it going? Like, are you good? Like, are you like, like maybe they're tired, like maybe they're hungry, like there's so many reasons why. So just check in with them. But also don't take it so personally. I took it so personally for the first like year for them not doing it. I was like, they hate me. They hated this lesson. And it had like nothing to do with me and nothing to do with anything to do with the lesson or anything. But if you just, and it's kind of like that, what is it? It's that Walt Whitman from from Ted Lasso, like be curious and not judgmental. Just be curious about like why kids are doing like what they're doing. It's probably not as nefarious as we think. We we tend to not think of kids in such nefarious ways.
I agree. And there was some stuff in here too about how the check your understanding, like helping kids and see that it's for their own benefit too. Like you're not doing it for me. It's you're checking your understanding and um so that accountability piece of helping them be accountable for their own learning. And there are some kids who are like maybe they don't need to, right? They got this and they feel like they've got it. So allowing that freedom sometimes, but it's hard to kind of let that
Oh, it's so tough.
go.
And oh yeah, and like I have always, like I'm said, I will build responsibility within my like students so much, but then my own like children, I'm like I need them to be like accountable to me. My own children, accountable. Other people's children, responsible. All you want, but accountable for me.
On
So
you. Yeah.
it's so tricky. It's really, really tricky. However, it's the best thing for them. It doesn't hurt, but it's the best thing for them in the long run, I would
Yeah.
hope. Right.
And I think you kind of answered the next one, but if anybody else has some other ideas too, or if you want to add specifically in on this, but how
Mm.
many minutes do you give for the check your understanding time? And you said at most 20, but the
Yeah,
other
that's like a
one,
lot.
yeah, and some people were in the comments were like 5. So
Yeah.
those of you that are on here, let us know about how much time, if you've done it before, how much time do you typically give? And then the second part too, if you want to add some more to this, is what if they finish all the problems early? And I'm
Hmm.
assuming it's kind of like the kids who opt out from doing it. But
Yeah. Well, and because one of the biggest things that has came out of that check your understanding research was that like you need to only have like three columns, right? You can't have that like extra spicy Hades Inferno. And I remember back in the day when this whole thing started, I remember Jared Slager had like this like one pepper challenge, and like I was like, this is so cool. And then him and I were talking about like, wait a minute, this isn't really working, blah, blah, blah. Like it's just one of those things that just like evolves over time, right? But we realized that fourth like level is really not great. So if you're going to like add, you should like, and I know that some people just add to the spicy, but I'll put three up to start, but I'll have like a few more. like like three more of the like mild and three more of the like medium. And what you can do with the spicy is you can have like two more spicy and then have one that's like real hot, real spicy. But guess what? We don't need to give it one extra like layer. Like it can just be part of the spices. And then if those kids finish, then they get a really big challenge. But then the kids who are working on mild don't feel like, oh my gosh, like I could never let them get there. It's like it's fine. And honestly, most kids I've worked with as young as like kindergarten and grade one will start with a like medium and then like gauge from there, which is a really cool way that just naturally happen where most kids will go, I'm going to do one medium and then see how that feels and then go to mild or spicy from there. And I think that's the coolest and the smartest way ever because that's a way I would have never done because I am a completionist, right? I'm going to start at like one and I'm going to do every single one of them and finish all of the questions. But kids are pretty smart and kids have the like economy of like effort of like okay I'm like because they kind of realize that's the like gauging scale is that medium question. So, but I'm curious what other people said too.
Yeah, there's a lot of like 5, 7 minutes.
Yeah. Yes. And Debbie Nelson, no to the like extra spicy. Although it's so, because like you want to put it in there, right? But like those kids who would do those questions don't need to feel special because they already feel special in math, right? Like they don't need that today because they get it every day in math, probably.
Yeah. And then this one, um, I'll just put it in there. Uh, in the book, it says that the CYU questions are written on the board, but can they be printed on paper as well? So like not to replace, but as well, and have students work on them on paper.
So I don't do this only because when you hand it to them, it just feels like they have to do the whole thing. It just kind of gets them into like worksheet mode of like, oh, because that's because, and like even when I do my mild, medium, spicy, I usually do them like I'm horizontally. And I'll do like mild, medium, spicy. And I like won't eat like because even just putting them vertically, like up and down, makes it feel like you have to start at the top. But I'm like, no, here's like mild, medium, spicy. And then from there, with my kinders, what I do though is I do have like when I've done it with kindergarten two ways. I've done it on individual whiteboards, which is really great. And I've done it on paper, but with the paper ones, I will have mild, medium, and spicy kind of on like a landscape like looking thing. And it's mild, medium, spicy. And then it's just blank spaces just for them to know where to put it because for them to make that and to scribe that is really tricky. But but yeah, I just wouldn't ever have it handed, even if I am going to like write it up, because the whole concept of it is that you, the check your understanding questions can't really be set in stone either. Because depending on how well or poorly the lesson goes, your kids might not get to those spicy questions ever. So you might actually have to back it up. So, and I think that element of fluidity and response to change is really important and giving them a canned worksheet which they know you printed 2 days ago because they saw this on your like desk for the last 2 days. They know it's not really responsive and it just feels too worksheety. So we want to be responsive. And I've changed my CYU questions in the middle of like a workshop with grown adults before. I'm like, oh shoot, I gotta do this instead, and this and this and this. So we want to be able to be responsive. So try your best to not print it off.
And that is a bit overwhelming and I think hard for us who grew up learning and then teaching with basically scripted
Mhm,
curriculums to be okay with the fluidity and
mhm.
not have everything like set out to begin with. I think is very hard to wrap our brains around sometimes. And so that's why I feel like a lot of these questions are sometimes we're taking this new information in, but we still have these ways that we grew up learning and the ways that we've taught forever, and we're trying to mesh them together. So we're kind of trying to make it fit a mold that maybe we have to be okay with letting go sometimes, you know? I just want to encourage everybody.
Mhm.
it, it's okay that you're coming up with these questions and you're seeing these things. I just want to acknowledge that's why, is because we're so used to this traditional way of doing things that we want to make some of these things that feel a little scary feel a little more comfortable, and handing out a piece of paper with the math problems on it is one of those really comfortable things as a teacher that we are used to doing. So, um,
I
yeah.
think so. And I think also as teachers, like BTC can make you feel quite like out of control sometimes. And like because you are giving up a lot of control in the way your classroom works. So I think sometimes we still try to hold on to like those like little bits of like control. And I get it. Like I'm with you here, guys. No one has like struggled more and gone like more to the like their own teaching than me during this whole process. But the one thing I do know, which is wonderful, is that every mistake I've made during any like not having like enough thin slices or whatever, the kids never know. The kids never know. I know. Nobody else would ever know. So just think about that with like you guys too. Like the mistakes we make and like if things aren't perfect in that perfect like script, the kids probably won't know at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be okay with this, as you guys try are implementing this, if you've never done it before, have some grace with yourself. It's not going to go perfect all at once. And if you do something that kind of helps you have some comfort, and just know, okay, I'm going to start here and then I'm going to try to work to this point, right? Like
Mhm.
Maegan talked about last time, it is this journey of where you were and where you're at right now. And sometimes you wish you were way up here, but even if you're here, it's better than where we were
Yeah,
here. Right?
exactly. Absolutely. And that car is pretty looking tiny down there. We just don't
Yeah.
like recognize it yet.
Nope.
Yeah.
Okay. So another one from this week was the notes thing.
Oh
So
yeah.
this teacher says, I'm struggling on the notes. I teach a special ed gen ed combo class. So, and particularly is wondering some advice about assisting the special ed students with the note taking.
So, well, I guess if you they could just not take notes. Like, the like special ed students like the different forms of like or the two phases of making like notes is like they make them on the boards and then you come by and take pictures, and then the second phase is they make them on the boards and then go and like sit down. But there's nothing to say that those special ed students don't like have to write them down, or they could use a computer if you really, really like wish them to. But like, and I don't know, this is a question that I might even ask Tammy because I see her face. You don't do notes, right? You don't do notes. And I've tried notes in kindergarten. It's more of the task because there's no way I can do that on top of a task, just the kids writing the notes basically down. So you could use technology, I suppose, but you could also just like allow them to be a part of the like note taking part on the boards, and then that could be that for them. And I think unless other people have other ideas, but I'm not like my grade six, sevens do like notes because they get to take those into their like assessments. But I don't do notes in the younger grades usually ever. It was something that we kind of have done in the past, but
That seems to be common. I see Diane, and I hope I'm saying your name correctly. I think I've heard Megan and Tammy say it. Did I say it correctly?
Diane.
Diane.
Diane. Thank you.
Okay. So that seems to be a common thing, that with the younger kids, maybe the note taking isn't as a prevalent piece. Let's say that.
yeah. Well, and like really the notes came from the fact that we needed to switch from the standard like note taking in like the older grades, but if you're not doing notes, you don't have to start doing notes that way, right? Like it's just it was yeah, and like I see that as mostly a replacement piece for the older grades. And if people do it in like grades 3, 4, that's fine, but if you don't do it, you don't have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I like that. If you're not already doing them, don't feel like you have to add them in. Let's just say that.
No. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Okay. The next question is the teacher is getting a paraprofessional for about 20
Mhm.
minutes during math. They're scheduled to come in 15 minutes after math time has started. So
Awesome.
kind of expecting that they will be in the middle of
Hmm.
tasks.
Yeah.
We also don't have any planning time with this para, so then they don't know their experience. So I think this is just kind of a general. I left it. This is a very specific question, but it's also like, what if you have parents that come in to help, right?
Yeah,
Anybody
totally.
that gets those parents that want to come in and help during math time, like, what do we do? What kinds of things can we have them do to be involved? This one specifically says that their para is supposed to work with remediation groups, but she's like, I need all the kids working together.
Yeah.
So specifically, what should I do with that one? But I think in general, it's like, what do we do when we have some helpers that would like to come
Hmm.
during that time?
Well, and this is, yeah, this is like interesting too because yeah, and so I think that when we have support teachers, and so like we call them instructional assistants here in Canada. But yeah, I'm guessing like that's what a paraprofessional is. It's
Yeah.
like a like
Some
an aide,
people
yeah.
call them paras, some people it's
Yeah.
an aid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of different words.
So,
Thank
yeah,
you.
so oftentimes we will bring those support people in because there like is no support. However, once kids are then in groups, they have support because they have other students. So I think the first question is, yeah, like obviously have them work with everybody because I don't think those students quite need the same support they would have like needed if they were sitting by themselves doing something independently. So number one, for sure, everybody should be. And it was also funny because me and my friend, like Anna, talked about this because she had 4 different support people changes throughout her whole like year, like this year. So she was constantly like, and so then we talked a lot about this and we started to do this like quick and dirty, like a B orientation of like, okay, you are like in here. I'm going to give you like 2 minutes of like what I need you to do. And we usually tell them, you give them a marker that is the same color as yours. We will say, um, you can like, and we will always give them like the script of the next questions to give or the next thin or thick slices, whatever. We give them that. We will also say, um, to not give them any like answers. Like that's one of like the 5 things we will like tell them. And then, but we also say, do not give them the next one until you are like I'm confident that everybody like understands it. And then the other thing we started to like add in was this idea of maybe when you have that support person coming in, uh you should do a task with those 4 like quadrants where they have to do different ones because if you have this support person who is giving questions and you aren't quite sure if those students actually understood that question, you have that like a record. Because remember how like last time we talked about like those 4 questions and then like erase it and then you can kind of like track that back. That's pretty good. But to be honest with you, the best professionals to have like in there is this one lady named Heather who learned alongside the like kids and she was like, really, I don't know actually, and she was just like a student with them because she wasn't super strong in like math, and it was the greatest thing ever. So but also tell them to just have fun with it. But like, I think it's actually good for them to like learn to like rotate, and they don't like, I feel like sometimes we don't have the greatest belief in these support professionals, but honestly, like it's just like anybody else. It's like another teacher coming in, because there's many teachers who have been teaching for 25 years who will be much more likely to give all the answers to those like students before these support people do. So I would just say have faith in them and give them like a few general rules to follow and just help them out. Because even 20 minutes is great, right? 20 minutes, and that's the bulk of your task probably, because you're going to do a 5 minute launch, 5, 10 minute like launch, and then that's probably going to be the bulk of your task. So that's the perfect time to have them in there.
There's been some great I've been trying to not
Oh
read
yeah.
tales in the
Yeah.
chat because I want to listen to you, but I am seeing some great stuff of people like, yes, this is awesome, or things like that happening in the chat of suggestions, resources. So make sure that you're checking on those. And just a reminder, when this is over, I will spend it takes me a little longer than it should, but I go through the chat and pull out the important pieces here, and so that when you get that document that has the resources, it is just the resources and ideas, not all the extra. That's awesome. I love that, or those kinds of comments either. So it does take me a
That's
day
great.
usually because I get distracted with my own kids and things, but they will be posted with this afterwards sometime.
Perfect.
So, but there was this kind of an overwhelming theme between yours and what I briefly saw over there was of encouraging the paras or instructional aides to just be less helpful,
Yeah.
and which is what we've had to try to do also as teachers, right? We're used to just telling them, here's the steps. And I think that a lot of them kind of grew up the same way of this is how kids learn math. And so just
Mhm.
having some constant conversation about being less helpful, asking questions instead of telling. And if they do have to be right there with their person, because sometimes
Mhm.
they are one-on-one aides that come in, that in that group setting, that they are a help to that person, not kind of overtaking the group and trying to tell them how to do it and those kinds of things. So,
Oh yeah, and the one other thing that we saw all the time was do not like let them take the groups like marker, because we saw that a lot, and that's just trying to be helpful. So by giving them a different colored like marker, it kind of gives you a tracking of like what they've done,
mhm.
because it tracks what they've done and make sure it's different than the kids' markers. And then that was helpful for us too.
I love that. Love it. Okay. One question that was put in was very similar to one that Megan answered last week, and it was about how to apply these in like an intervention time with only 30 minutes with your group. And so I just wanted to remind people what Megan had talked about, that it's in there from last week, but also she had mentioned now I'm going to forget the color. It's the blue book, right?
Hmm.
The blue book of Building Thinking Classrooms, when you just go search Building Thinking Classrooms, there's a blue book that is modifying Building Thinking Classrooms for any kind of setting. So if you have specific questions about your type of setting that you have, we want to remind you of that book. That might not be the kind of gen ed classroom situation. Okay. Okay. And then this one is not a quick question, but I bumped it up towards the top, Megan, so that we could
I
talk.
saw that.
This is one that we were talking too long about, and that's why I took a few minutes to let you all in because we were having this discussion. But the question was, do you assess your students' basic numeracy knowledge? And if so, what do you use? So basically their team wrote a grant to address building number sense for first graders. And so they had asked, do you feel these tasks help to build number sense? So I'll let you get.
Yeah, so yes, and I think that yes, obviously, this does help you build number sense. But I was talking with Christina about because like I was talking to Kim last week, I think. Was that like last week, Kim? Just put it in the chat. I don't actually know when I met with Kim, but
Yeah,
we
it
were
all blurs together right now,
oh
doesn't it?
God, I know I couldn't tell you when I talked to her, but it was at some point this summer. It was in the last 2 weeks for sure. Um, but one thing though that we talked a lot about too was just this idea of flexibility more than like fluency. And Peter talks about this a lot too. So like I'm in particular, Kim and I were talking about how there's like these middle school, these like middle years teachers who consistently tell us that like kids don't know how to multiply or divide. And then I was like, well, it's not that they don't know how to like add probably, or they probably don't know how to like make 10. And so what the middle school teachers see as like the problem is really just like a symptom of the problem. And it's not really it is basic numeracy knowledge, but it's actually more like a flexibility piece, right? So I think BTC really helps me build mathematical flexibility where kids can start to look at numbers in different ways. And the best example is if you give a kid a question like 52 subtract 49 and they start stacking it instead of just adding three, right? Like that is a kid who like understands some flexibility with numbers. And so I think that's one thing that BTC really, really focuses on is this idea of like there's many different models, there's many different ways to like understand the numbers, but that are not just procedures. So I think there's like understanding procedures, which is great, like facts, but I think if we don't have this flexibility, we don't really have fluency. So it's facts, flexibility, become fluency, but we need that flexibility. We need kids to understand what numbers are. And I know Christina has so much more to talk about even on that too, because that's her like whole thing. But like numbers are not just these like abstract things in which we use like algorithms for. They are these like yeah. So kids need to actually understand what numbers are, not just how to apply algorithms for them. Thoughts, Christina? Because I'm sure like this is going to be right
Yeah.
up your alley.
I was telling Megan I'm planning out a webinar to do this fall or here probably end of summer, and it is about those things that kids need to understand about numbers to really think through problems and not be relying upon procedures. And the cool part is that they don't necessarily have to have these things as long as they can count. They can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Right. I mean, the research of cognitively guided instruction shows us that preschoolers can do division problems, right? If they can count and model the problem, right? If we
Mhm.
just give them 12 divided by 3, they have no idea what that is. But if we give them a problem about there's 12 cookies and 3 of you get to share those 12 cookies, how many are you going to get? You bet they're going to figure that problem out, right? So they can do these tasks. It may not be at this advanced like fluent type level that maybe we
Mhm.
think they should as sixth, seventh, eighth graders at that level, right? But at that level also they also feel like they can't count, and so they sit there and don't do anything if they can't come up with
Mhm.
things either. So there's a space in between of, yeah, we want kids to be able to solve it any way they can, but as teachers we also want them to become more efficient, more flexible beyond just counting. But counting is the base way that we add, subtract, multiply, and divide.
Mhm.
um, so as long as they can do that, then doing these tasks will get them to start noticing and thinking and seeing how others think about problems. And that will
Yeah, and
build.
that's huge, right? Is that they can see how other kids would solve it, which is different than their own. Because before they were like siloed into this like one way. Sorry, silo, Saskatchewan. It's the farm talk in me.
I get it. I got
Yeah.
the silo thing, all in isolation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is the numeracy is the foundation of thinking in mathematics, right? They need to understand how numbers work so that they can think about those numbers that are given in those problems. And yeah, we want them to be quick with it, but typically, if they're not, that's when we say, oh, they don't know this, and so they can't do that. But they can, just at a less efficient level, typically. They can count, they
Yeah.
can stuff. So what
Well, and
is
that's the thing, right? Is that like oftentimes people think speed is the same as like knowledge, whereas it's like, well, they can do it quick. I'm like, well, that doesn't mean much. Also Debbie Nelson put in a great thing, which is Marion Smalls has these like open questions. It's wonderful. I've been using Marion stuff for years and it's so great. And it's all these like open-ended questions that are all like very conceptual based. And that is something that is great is that, and this is probably one of my favorite parts about BTC, is that there is always something more to be pushing towards. It just gives you a framework in which to work on those things in. As like Tammy talks about how she wants to marry the Pam Harris's stuff, and like I'm all about like flexibility and like multiple models now, right? Like, but and you can do that within BTC, which is kind of nice. It's not like a like either or thing.
Yeah, it all meshes together. So
Yeah.
do you do you use a numeracy assessment with
So
your
we have in my kindergarten class we have a like eyes us like so it's called the like eyes, it's the early years like assessment, but it covers everything from like kicking a soccer ball to like it's all these different things, and the only thing like we do is we have them count 15 stars, we have them make some sets, and we have them makes yeah, and then like recognize their numbers, but in Canada we don't have as many standardized tests. We're just not standardized test focused. It's okay though, my province will be standardized test focused soon enough, I'm sure. We our like current government I think is going to really like standardized tests soon, so I'll be right there with you guys.
Um, if so that's one of the issues I have. Typically, standardized tests don't tell you much about their number sense. They give you the
Yeah.
end. Like I remember my one of my kids when he was in kindergarten, one of the tests was it just had like the dot pattern for five, like the dice pattern.
Yeah.
And but it was given by an aide or somebody, like the teacher wasn't the one giving the assessment, right? So during student teacher conferences at the beginning of the year, parent teacher conferences, it wasn't
Hmm.
student teacher, but parent teacher. And the teacher is showing me this assessment, and then she's, it's just marked off that he said it was five. And I was like, well, do we know how? Like, was he counting? Did he just know it was five?
Hmm.
Like those are totally different things. Yes, he could say it was five, but if he's counting one by one versus just seeing it and knowing it's five, those are totally different things. And you don't know that unless you're sitting right there next to him. And so a lot of those standardized tests are only giving you kind of the end product piece
Oh
of
yeah.
what it is, and you're not seeing what their thinking was that went into it, which is really difficult. And I know that's difficult to do with a classroom full of kids also. But if you do have some students who are struggling a little bit and you're wondering what is holding them up with their number knowledge,
Hmm.
you have to sit with them and ask them questions.
Oh,
That's what it
totally.
comes down to. And if you don't know what questions to ask, at buildmathminds.com under the freebies, I think it's buildmathminds.com/freebies. Just sign up for it, and it'll take you to a page. And one of the freebies, you get all the freebies that we have, but one of the freebies is about number sense, and it's a whole booklet about what number sense contain. What I like to focus
Hmm.
on, because there's lots of things you can focus on. But what I like to focus on, it also gives you prompts and tasks to give the kids to kind of see what what they might be missing. So that's
Amazing. Yeah.
um but again,
Perfect.
it's not standardized. It's not something you can like use as your, thing as a norm reference thing. It's just these are things that I find incredibly useful to know whether or
Hmm.
not your students understand about numbers. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm with you.
All right, so let's get into stuff about tasks. What do we got? About 14 minutes left. Okay.
Yeah, we're
Um,
fine. All those quick questions
those
just took
quick
45 minutes. It's fine. We're good.
Okay. Let's see. So there is a lot of questions still about how often, how long do you
Hmm.
give the tasks, how much time during the week, how long during your math time, all of that. Just kind of like, I guess, the general overview again, if we could go through that
Yeah.
of kind of what we should try to do.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Ideally, you want to do it every single day. Like in my grade 6, 7 class, it is every day. In my kindergarten class, it's pretty much every day. Occasionally, we're gonna pop off, like we're gonna do some sort of like centers or something like that for fun. And oftentimes, I'll do centers and things like that when I want to pull kids to do like interviews. When I want to do some like assessments, kind of like what you were saying, Christina. Whenever I want to do that is when I'll do some like centers in that respect. But you would like to do it every day. Now, I know that so many people are going to be like, I can't do it every day. You should do what you're comfortable with. Like that's how we start this. But understand that kids are really good at compartmentalizing. Kids are really good at being like, okay, I will think when we're doing this on the boards and da 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 da. But if you give me a like a worksheet, I'm going to go into mimicking mode. And it's a really interesting thing because you see that stark difference so much more. So what I've noticed is my students on the boards, they at first they'll like I call it, well, sorry, I don't. This is my brother who calls his like I'm dogs like I'm sticky, like when they're kind of like I'm close and they're being like whiny kind of. So I find kids become pretty sticky at the beginning and they want help from us and they want to like stick around us and call us back a lot. But after they've been on the boards enough, they become quite self-sufficient. But it's really interesting because then once you have them sit and do like worksheets or you give them like a really like back to back to basics kind of thing of like traditional teaching, they become really sticky again because they just go back into this mode of like I don't like I can't do it. I don't know like what I'm supposed to do. And they kind of start to get really like nervous in that sense. And I've noticed this a lot with my students, which honestly just makes me want to put them on the boards more, which is a good thing, I think. But kids will compartmentalize. So however much you choose to do, if it's 30 minutes a day, if it's like, or sorry, 30 minutes a week, an hour a week, every single day, the kids will compartmentalize when they have to do their thinking and they'll literally just turn it on and off. And you might start to see some stark differences. And even I was laughing because Anna was telling me about how she was like, she didn't have a thinking task planned. And so then she gave them this like worksheet. And then she was like, it was the worst thing ever. I was running around and like I was sweating and it was horrible. And kids had their hands up and everyone's yelling. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds miserable. And she's like, I just don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, yeah, I don't blame you. So, but feel it out, right? Like you need to be like I don't want to sit there and be like it is all or nothing, but you just have to understand what is your trade-off for that. Because every action we have and every choice we have has this consequence. So in terms of how the frequency is ideally you would like it to be the main form, like the main structure in which your class is built around. What happens during that structure can change, but the main structure most days for me will be that. That's covers the first one, hey, ish.
Yeah. So I'm gonna kind of jump to another one in there. Where did it go? Uh, there was something, now I can't find it, of course, when I'm looking for it. But basically it was, oh, there it is. Are students working every day on the vertical non-permanent surfaces? Or are there ever times in which the learning or lesson happens when kids are in their seats? So it's a like, yes, but when you're doing BTC, they should be up at those vertical non-permanent surfaces.
Yeah, and like I use like Magma Math sometimes and like I got really and I had a really weird grade 6, 7 schedule. I'd like I think I had a 90-minute class, a 70-minute class, and like a 30-minute class. So it was like just the dog's breakfast. It was a lot. However, so in my 30-minute class, I would oftentimes do like Magma Math questions as like assessments and stuff because that was about all we had time to do. And like, well, it wasn't all we had time to do, but like if I ever like wanted to, I would just do that in within my 30-minute block. But just understand that like those kinds of things, yeah, like I would say that there is a stark difference between them. And once again, they don't have to be on the boards for a ton of time, right? Like if I have a 30-minute class, they're going to be on the boards for 15 minutes and maybe like, or 5-minute launch, 15 minutes on the board, and then 10 minutes to do some check your understanding questions, right? Like it's like it doesn't, and and that's specifically with time, like how long do you spend? It really depends on what your math class is. I've had 90-minute ones where it was once a week, 90 minutes, and I would do a launch, a big task. We did consolidation, notes, or yeah, notes and check your understanding questions all in the one day because there's 90 minutes. Those
Mhm.
kids were dogged by the end of it. They were like, "We've been standing for 75 minutes, Miss G." I'm like, "I know, guys. You guys can sit and do some check your understanding questions." They're like, "Thank you." I'm like, "Okay." So like that's a lot. But then my kindergartners, we start off at like I'm lucky if I can get my 30-minute class at the beginning of the year to be filled with them on the boards, right? Like it's like 15 minutes is my like lucky time. And then by the end we can get to 40 minutes or so. But it's just kind of like building it all up, right? And I kind of see the people are talking about that too, about like building the plane, right? It's like you just got to build it up.
Yeah. Yeah. They have to get comfortable. You have to get comfortable, right? Like it, the flow will happen and you'll get better at managing the time and figuring out how much time you need there too.
Oh yeah,
Um,
totally.
and then this was, I think, more a clarifying question. Somebody had asked, does each vertical board get a different task? And if so, do they rotate around to those tasks?
So here's the funny thing is they do well, they will eventually probably, but they start off with the same task. And like, different groups will get to different like we'll get to different questions throughout. It's kind of like as like Peter says, everybody works. So in a regular class, everybody does the same number of questions, but their time depends on on like how long it takes them to do those X number of like questions. In a thinking classroom, it's like you have this much time and then people get done varied amounts of work in that time. But everybody starts off with the same questions and it's that same series. Uh, However, there is one instance where I do have different questions on the board, and that is if I do review. So if I do a review day on something, I have one extra board and there are different questions on like every single board. I just tell the kids, hey guys, we're gonna be reviewing, we're gonna have a quiz like tomorrow, whatever, in a few days, blah 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 blah. And then I give them the cards, and then those groups go to different boards. And then once they finish that one like review question, they will erase their like an answer and then go to the like an open board. And then people just kind of like move around the room as a group. That's the only time I would ever have a different question on the board.
I like that. And it, I feel like that one maybe would help clarify too that like, these, the VNPS, I always want to leave off the end, the vertical
The
circuit
boards. I like
board,
literally say the
the
boards.
board.
Like man,
Okay.
whatever's
Like the
there.
bears. We'll just call it the boards.
The boards.
The boards don't have to be used for only that purpose, right? I think that came up before too. Like, do you use these boards in other academic areas too?
Oh,
But like
constantly.
you were just talking, like I use them for review. Like, why not have the kids up and moving around, and so you can see their thinking as, and instead of it
Yeah.
down on a desk where you can't see what's going on.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. And
really.
like also. Oh yeah, and like I'm even like I use them in science. I taught health this year. I use them in health, and I also like I know kids who will use them during check your understanding questions. Just because like the kids like to be able to just erase. Like there's just some kids who just want to be able to erase. Even though those same kids will fight me tooth and nail every damn day to get to those boards. When it comes to check your understanding questions, they're all about doing it on the boards. I'm like, oh no, well, I love the boards again. Isn't that funny? I just fought like with you for 20 minutes, but that's fun. Just a typical kid thing, but that's grade 7 girls. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so a quick one, and then I want to end with a deeper one with you, Megan.
Hmm.
So they said, they were like, this might be a silly question, but as we
There
said,
are no silly
there are
questions.
no silly questions. We're just clarifying things, right? And just asking
Hmm.
for our knowledge. So when you're doing tasks like the hexagon havoc or next door numbers, they said, would I draw the hexagons or the boxes on the workspaces in advance, or should the students draw those?
So I will tell you right now, I almost always draw them because number one, the next door numbers is a really like you just have to know how to draw it because even my like instructional aide struggles most of the time to draw it. And she's like, "How do you do it again, Megan?" I'm like, "It's fine, like Mary, just come here." And then I'll do it. And hexagons are really, really hard to draw for kids. So please draw those for the kids. Yeah, so I would draw them and I usually draw them like during recess or like before I teach them. I just go around and put it like them up there. But even in the book, like in the companion website, since you guys will all have the book, I'm sure. The companion website actually has like printables or like, yeah, printables, I think, and you could print them and then just like laminate them if you're like worried, but I usually just draw them. I don't mind. It's pretty quick too.
Put them up on the board for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, because that's like that's just not the point of it, right? I don't need to know if they can draw a like hexagon. And guess what? The kids are gonna erase it anyways and try. So you can watch them fail during that because they love to erase it on you and then try it themselves. I'm like, this is fun.
So I saved this one for last. I know we're kind of short on time, so give us whatever kind of
Oh
an
my
answer
God.
you want to give us here, Megan. But um, I wanted to address this because it was kind of brought up in the chat last time um,
Mhm.
about focusing on building empathy. So this teacher is working with building habits of character, and this year really wants to focus on building empathy. So just wondering if you have some strategies, phrases, or words of wisdom for building empathy.
Well, and I was going to because I'm very curious about this person because when I was talking to like Anna about this, we had both kind of like I said, this person probably is already building pretty strong like empathy if they're like considering all of these things and having this like focus. Um, but a phrase that I have been trying to get my younger kids to just say, especially because like the younger kids like I've had them draw each other's like names and like try their best and you know the dippity doos, but it's but just like what so the one phrase that I've had my kindergarten say is like what to their partners is what do you think? And just like that simple thing of like, what do you think? Like, you know, and so I usually say if you really want to say something, before you say it, say, What do you think?" And then just to kind of involve that. And we just and once again, I'm going to talk more in my kinders because my six, sevens, I've been trying to build empathy with them for the whole year, and I feel like I've gone 10 steps backwards every day of my life with them, but it's fine because they're middle years children and I'm just gonna love them where they're at. But so number one is I try to like have them just talk to one another, but I also think that this idea of like showing this multiple models and like many ways of thinking, I think it's a really good way for kids to care about each other's thinking because I think if they can be like, oh wow, I never thought about it like that, and really kind of focusing in on that whole idea of like be curious, not judgmental, like that's been a really good thing of like, let's not erase someone's stuff. If you want to erase someone's work, why don't you say, hey, could you tell me more about this? What did you mean by that? Could you clarify that for me? And obviously, my kinders aren't saying, could you clarify that for me? But my kinders do know to not erase anybody's work. And I think that is not a like unsung hero of BTC, but I think it's a really undervalued piece of BTC, which is that you can't erase someone else's work. Because erasing someone else's work is like the opposite of like empathy, right? Like it's just telling you I don't really care about what you did. But even just being like, hey, what did you mean by that? Or like, hey, could we erase this because we need more room or whatever else. But I think just having kids talk to one another. But yeah, so those are my three things. Be curious, try to show up like those multiple models so that they care about each other's thinking and what do you think? Just a tiny thing of like, what do you think? Like, what are you thinking? Because oftentimes it's the quietest kids who need the most empathy, right? Because the kids who are loud and boisterous, they get like an empathy because we can relate to something external, but we sometimes struggle to relate to a kid who's not saying anything, right?
It's a good point. Yep. Yeah. And they don't share for us to offer up the empathy too, you know?
Mhm.
So it is difficult when kids aren't sharing to be able to provide that empathy. And, um, okay, so Kim was in there a lot again. So we've got a lot of summarizing quotes and stuff in our chat area. So we will get all of those. She did a great job of summarizing those 3 things for empathy. Thank you, Kim. Megan, thanks for giving up 2 weeks with us. I just really appreciate the time that we have had. And now Megan looks like she's frozen. That's what happens at the end. So thank you everyone who is here. I'm going to see if it's going to come back on with Megan. Nope, she got kicked out. At least it was at the end that Megan got kicked out instead of somewhere in the beginning. So we will be back next Wednesday with Kim. Kim has been very active in the chat, but now it's Kim's turn to be on camera with us. So I'm excited to hear about what Kim has to offer us. So make sure that you go in. Use the form that we have emailed out to submit your questions, and we will see you again next Wednesday.